Hey there, my friends. Clark Brown, Restoration Advisors and Disaster Podcaster. Here we are. We're back. Season number 4, our first episode. Gosh, it seems like it's been a long time since I did one of these last, so I might be a little rusty. But alas, we are here. So I want to welcome you back. If this is the first time you've ever seen Disaster Podcaster, we have 3 prior seasons. They all have different themes and lots of guests and cool topics, a lot of giveaways and stuff like that. So definitely go back and check that out either on Spotify, Apple, or on YouTube for the video versions. But we ended last season, we were a couple of dozen episodes in. And when we finished, we kind of thought that was going to be it. I had made up in my mind, I think I even made an announcement that this was the end. That was the end of Disaster Podcaster. It wasn't a game. It wasn't a trick. It wasn't some kind of marketing ploy. I was running out of ideas and things to say, at least from how to portray the right message and give good content and give good education. I just didn't know where to go next. I was at a loss. And I also looked around the industry, and really just a thing that bothers me is everybody was doing a podcast. There were so many podcasts. I got in my head a little bit and said, how are you different? What do you're one of everybody else, one of many. And I definitely don't like that. I'm more of a me kind of person. It had been pretty much decided with myself and my team that was it, that we had 3 good seasons. We have about 60 episodes out. They were good. I was proud of most of them. Obviously, the early ones, I didn't know what I was doing. Probably still don't. But somewhere throughout the last year, I started getting a lot of texts and calls and messages and emails and comments on existing podcasts on whatever channels asking, hey, when are we going to get season 4? Because they had not heard we were stopping yet. They hadn't gotten to the last one. And they said, when are we going to hear season 4? And for a while, it was there isn't going to be one. But I was convinced by talking to people, and some of the comments was there was value. And then I just talked to some really close people and even my business coach and said, doesn't matter if there's other voices and other podcasts. You only have yours. So I thought over. I was in Montana in November, and I just spent a week in a cabin hanging out, ideas, plans, future. And I said, okay, what would I do to make it different? So I came up with, I said, if I do this again, this is what it's going to look like. So I want to tell you now, the theme of this year is going to be talking about projects specific, relatively specific. Some of them I can't say who the customer was because of privacy reasons and NDAs. I've been fortunate to work on some very, very large, not so large, but some very interesting, complicated, unique projects that had a lot of stories, and I'm a storyteller. So I'm sitting with my family one night at dinner. This was in January or February this year, and something came up, and I started talking about Hurricane Sandy in New York City, and it was a story. And I think my son looked at me and said, Dad, we've never heard this. This was wild. Like, y'all did what? This is what you did for a living? And he was much younger. That was 2010 or 11. And he said, Dad, you need to have that on your podcast. People would love to hear that story. So I said, sure, but I want to make it about the people that were on it, the logistics, the specific. I don't know where this is all going to go, but I've got a lot of stories to tell. But I lived through them, and they seem like no big deal, but they really are in the grand scheme of things. So that's going to be the kickoff of that. Why wait so long till now? I would have liked to start a few weeks ago and kind of get the most out of this year, this 2024. Right now, it's March 27th. When I'm filming this, I don't know when you're watching it, but we've been very busy at Restoration Advisors. We grew our team by a few people this year. We created a new product or a new system or a program. It's called ROS, Restoration Operating System. It has been phenomenal. We launched last year with like a pilot and had, 13 to 15 people go through. Whether some are still in it, but some have the business. It's just like crazy easy to run now. So we validated that this works, and so we're just now going to like scale that and try to see if we can't start helping more people. So that's been really big. We've had events, we've had things going on. We wrote a book, 41 Markers. I'm going to put the link down in the bottom in the description. It's very cheap. It's on Kindle or on paperback. It's a small book. I don't know, 100 and something pages. No, actually 90 pages. So it's a small book, but the feedback has been great. I did not know how it was going to be received, but I wanted to write a book, and I wanted to get some of these things out of my head. So 41 Markers is like, it's called a book about stating what you stand for and standing for what you state. So it's positioning, core values, core principles, knowing who your customer is, knowing who you are, knowing what you do, and being the best at it. So I think that's a good read. I think you'll enjoy it. Some other people have. I enjoyed writing it. But it was hard. I'd never written a book, and I'd never published a book, and I didn't know how, and it was clumsy. So we did that, and then we've been, like I said, we've had some events. We had a client intensive in St. Louis with all of our clients a couple weeks ago, and I want to really move into a shout out. Is we were at the Big Flood event in just outside of, it wasn't really in Toronto. It was south of Toronto in a city that I can't pronounce. But Kevin Dooley put on a really, really unique event. It was a week long at his facility there in Mississauga, I think it is. He flooded his commercial building. So Pat Dooley, Kevin's father, longtime CDS instructor and CRC instructor, he flooded his own commercial space and brought in 150 contractors, like myself was one of them, and a lot of vendor partners. And Circle was there, and a DocuSketch, and just a lot of really, really good contributors. Chuck DeWall and Chris Laney with E3 were there, kind of putting together the drying plan. So they did a CDS class so everybody could get their certs, but just had a lot of education and really started talking about where are we as an industry and where do we need to go? We really, really, really been having these conversations for so long. So shout out to Kevin for having the energy and the idea and the creativity to put together such a powerful event. Thank you, Kevin, for inviting me and participating. And these are the kinds of events that we need to be having. We don't need to be going to the same things and talking about the same stuff. We need to talk about solutions and processes and systems. And that's what this was. And I think I can speak for everybody that was there. Everyone had a really, really, really good time. So shout out to Kevin. I'm looking forward to the energy of where this goes, if we can't stack some other things on top of it. And then lastly, I want to tell you about what to expect this year. We're going to have I'm going to go with every other week just because of time allowances. Every other Friday on YouTube and Spotify, we're going to have a podcast. Fridays at 10 a.m., they drop Eastern time. So subscribe and like. And listen, I watch a lot of YouTube videos. I learn a lot from YouTube. And the whole subscribe and like thing really used to annoy me. But I've understood. I understand that if you've got something that you think is valuable, people just don't see it. But those subscribes and those likes, and even if you comment, which I really, really want to encourage you to do, give me ideas, give me feedback, tell me your own story, talk about something you would like to hear. It works the algorithms. It's a social media is a chess match, and so I don't monetize off of this. There's no money in this. I'd have to have millions and millions of viewers, I think, to make money off of it, and I don't even know how that works. But what I do want is I want people to get value from this and have conversations and be optimistic about their opportunities. So please, real simple, hit that subscribe, hit that like. If you don't, it's okay, but you might miss these episodes and you might not get reminded, or you might not get notified. So I want to start off with a shout out. Throughout this last year that we weren't filming, I received a troubling and a somber notification or a message, and I called this person a very good dear friend and colleague of mine passed away. And I think it's actually been a few years now, but I didn't know. We weren't that close. We had worked together, drifted apart. You know how life goes. But he died. His name was John Hogan. And I met John from my early career at Cotton. John came aboard. John was an Army Ranger. He was in the military. He had served, very patriotic, very, very principled. And his background, his position at Cotton at that time, and then subsequently all along, was health and safety. And he was your typical health and safety guy, like hardcore and annoying at times. I would not lie if we didn't sometimes make jokes and really razz him about being a safety Nazi. But I will tell you, John really showed me a persistence in the importance of safety. And as I accrued and gathered all of my OSHA certs, just everything and lots of them. I mean, he had a culture that he bred into the company, and pushed me to really dive into that side of the business, and made me a better contractor, made me a better business owner eventually, in the space and the professionalism of what we do. You'll hear me talk a lot about health and safety as another part of the certifications that we pursue in this industry. So much of OSHA applies to this, but we're not listed in OSHA as a restoration, remediation, disaster recovery contractor. So we fall under some basic construction ones. And you'll always hear me talking about that, and sometimes ad nauseum. Some people get really sick of it because our industry doesn't preach that much. But it's because of John Hogan. And he later went on, when I moved and left Cotton in the late 2008 season, I went to Interstate, who is now First On Site, and John went to work there too, and continued to just dive into it. But John was also different. He also mentored our PMs. I was a senior project manager, and then became a director and a trainer and a couple other things. But John's job was health and safety, but he knew that he had to win the hearts and minds of the project managers and superintendents to have them trust him and accept them. And he took care of people. John was a good guy. John was a real good guy. A hard case sometimes, but he had to be. So I really wanted to give a shout out to John and his surviving family. And if John is listening, you made a big, big difference in my career and those of so many others that we worked with and know that are now moved on. I went on to build my own business, and I had you in my head most of the time when I was building my processes around the work that we do. So shout out to John Hogan. Rest in peace, brother. Your memory and legacy lives on with hundreds of people that you touched and worked with. So appreciate what you did. So I want to talk and move into projects. As I'm idealizing this season, it would have been kind of common sense to go linear and start at the beginning and kind of follow a chronological, sequential timeline and start with where we all started. And I could talk about the very first few jobs and how I got into this industry, but I want to jump around a little bit this year. I think I'm just going to let it go where it goes. I don't think that the order and the sequence really makes a lot of difference, but we will go back sometimes, and I think that all the series and the episodes will tie together, and you'll see some crossovers. But I want to jump into, and I did not do massive research. You can always look this up yourself. People ask me what Clark has been the worst devastation, the worst storm, worst project, or worst regional event that you've seen. That's obviously a very loaded question. I have seen a lot, like many of you have, and my friends. I've been all over the country and all over the world. Fukushima, Japan, earthquakes, tsunamis, Katrina, of course, all kinds of things. But I think that the one thing that really probably stays with me the most of like really being sharing the trauma with the region was Joplin, Missouri. Joplin had an F5 tornado. Rumors were that at the time when it happened, there was not an F5, that the storm was so powerful that the National Weather Committee, tornado group, upped the rating to a 5 because the pressure was so strong. We got the call. Hogan, this is why I'm bringing this up, because Hogan ended up was going to be there, because this was a very, very devastating storm. We were likely going to be working on some really, really complicated projects that required a lot of health and safety awareness, from environmental, and then of course, harm to the staff and each other and the public. So flew into Springfield, Missouri. Joplin's airport was gone. And we flew into Springfield late at night. I got there. It was actually one of the first jobs that my oldest son, Cody, who is now 32, Cody, 32. He wanted to try to do what we do, make good money, learn a skill, get on the road. And so he flew out with me, and we landed, and we picked up somebody else at the airport that was coming in. So the way we deployed is a lot of people would, come. I was the project director. They would say, these are the exposures we have. We've been called to look at these projects. So we kind of knew what we had, but we always knew that we were going to be picking up more because of either people hadn't gotten on site yet, or we're going to be making relationships in town, pursuing others, opportunities. So we had a bench, and I call it the bench, but a matrix of who was available, what project managers, what superintendents, what specialists. Some people were specialists in certain things. And it was kind of like, I knew, and our company was pretty big. It was a national company, but who's been out for a long time, who's where. Sometimes I would pull people from an existing job if they had specific skill sets, and the new project we had was needed them more than the one they were on. Like, it might have been low key, it might have been in drying mode, it might have been towards the end. We could pull them away. Now, nobody likes to not finish a project, but I would pull Casey or Rebecca or something. This was in her wheelhouse, blah, blah, blah. So we deployed our first wave, we called them, Team 1. And Team 1 was coming out, and it was just the basics of knowing what we had, get eyes on, do assessments, and then just calling in the troops and the equipment and whatever we needed. So we're heading in middle of the late at night. I don't know, it was like 11, and we've got hotels, booked. We have a logistics person that is getting us lodging and everything we need, right? So I don't have to worry about that. I did in the early days, but it's so much better when someone spends their time. So these large companies have individuals that are doing handling just subs. So I call and say, I need this as a subcontractor. They handle that. They have the relationships and all the numbers and the operational guides on who we use, and they can issue the POs to my jobs. Then you've got in ops, you've got someone for the people, and they would help us, especially in a area-wide disaster where if it was one job, I had access to the list. But if it's larger and there's lots of things going on, I'm not the only person there. I don't need to be managing, taking people and human resources and assets when I don't know what else is going on. So really it goes into a military chain of command. Someone had to know what we had and where to best put the people. So it wasn't always my choice. So someone would handle that. Someone would handle, obviously Hogan was handling health and safety. So we had all these silos, and you had a team. And so when we had collaborative meetings, when we have conference calls, it had to be someone from all of them. Someone from business development. They had relationships. I've got 11 clients, national clients, that have facilities somewhere in Joplin. We're going to need to go by and spot them. So we're getting maps downloaded to our tablets saying, these are your targets. Go. You need eyes on. We had a format of how to do assessments of the damage and pictures and ideas, what we think, what the exposure, what the access is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we would really complete an assessment report and upload that back to Mothership. So our BD, client, account manager, whatever you want to call them, and then they would get it to their client for, assessment, next steps, decisions, whatever. So we're heading to our hotel. It's late at night. We have a minivan. It's all that was available. We have a minivan. It was like some Chrysler or something. And I remember we're on the interstate. I think it's I-30. Anybody that lives in that area can probably tell me. Maybe it's I-40. But we're cruising along, probably going too fast, and boom, a deer runs out in front. And we kind of clipped it, but it hit the side of the van. I think it was a spike, but it did a little bit of damage to the front quarter panel, and then there was some blood. It was bad, but we stopped and went back, and it did die right there on the side of the road. So it was awful. But that was my son was like, "What the hell?" It sounded like a boulder hit our vehicle. So anybody here that's ever hit a deer knows how that can work out. But we got lucky; it didn't hit the windshield, didn't really debilitate our vehicle, and luckily it wasn't a little Hyundai. It was a minivan. So we continued on. The next morning, we have we have to meet together with whoever's on site. We have a debrief, round up early morning at one of our hotels. We're all in different places. So I've arranged this, and there's about 22 people all together, and we just like outlined the plan. And I've already gotten some contact from Mothership, Command Center. These are some priorities. This is who's coming in. It's kind of a schedule's being built. And we set up a distribution list so that everybody can get contacted. There was no cell phone signal, as you can imagine. So we switched over to two-way radios. Someone had shipped those in, and someone had brought a deployed truck where it was in the closest office to Joplin. It might have been Kansas City. We had a deployment truck there that came in, and they all had T-shirts for equipment, safety gear, but these trucks were set up for one job, so we obviously needed more. So I think Dallas at corporate was sending us a tractor trailer with more things, but we needed to get two-way radios because that's how we were communicating. We were on the outside of Joplin where we were staying. I don't know, 4 or 5 miles at the freeway, and we saw some debris. And we saw some things in the road and a couple of signs down and awnings, just minor details that we saw. It might tell you like, wow, this is not really going to be that big a deal. We're not going to be here long. We get our map, GPS, and we start heading to our first stops, and we go into the zone. A tornado, if you've never been around one, it's extremely tactile. It's extremely specific. And Joplin, Missouri tornado, and it might have been several, but the big one, it cut a path that was about 1.25 miles wide, 8 miles long. So it went down and cut through Joplin all the way down to the other side of town. And I'm going to find some pictures of that and put them here in this podcast, so you might see those popping up right now. I'd never seen devastation like this. I'd been through, at this point, I'd been through Katrina, and that was pretty bad. Mississippi, New Orleans wasn't like Mississippi. Mississippi got hammered and thrown back into 20 years behind. Joplin was just you could sense the sheer power of carelessness of cars in top of trees that were stripped of bark and limbs, just like they were just someone had literally done that. Flat slabs, no structure there, just slabs everywhere. Businesses smashed, things had caught on fire. It was crazy. Power lines down everywhere. Getting around was tricky. This had been like 2 days in, so they were still getting cars towed, debris hauled out of the way. I went down this major road, and this is probably where I will say the magnitude of this storm hit me. I'm trying not to be too emotional about it, but it was pretty impactful. So I'm going down the main drag, and in storms, you'll see a lot of resources coming in. You'll have FEMA trucks, probably a little early at this point in Joplin, but all your insurance companies will start deploying command centers, pop-up tents, and RVs where they start taking claims from people because they don't have phones or internet. And so they'll start submitting claims there with claims, specialists, maybe adjusters and stuff like that. You'll see a lot of, it's funny, Tide, the company, whatever parent company with Tide. Tide has these deployed tractor trailers, 53-foot trucks. They show up at disasters. The sides open up, and inside are a string of washer and dryers, and they're providing free clothes care, their soap and everything for that. All of your major chains, your Walmart, your Home Depot and stuff. Home Depot was heavily damaged, but all of these chains will show up with some kind of pop-up and do humanitarian work. It's really staggering to watch in a situation like this where there's just recovery just seems like it's going to take forever, but these basic needs, so there's people there giving out clothes and food and water, of course, and meals, and it's really good to see. Some other things I saw were a lot of colleges around that part of the country, Kentucky. I remember seeing Michigan and Nebraska, and all these colleges would have these team buses, like football teams and band or whatever, and they were students volunteering, and they were there doing what they could. You'll see a lot of these little places on the side of the road where chainsaws could be sharpened, free. You just pull up, and there's a line of cars and saying your chainsaw blades were dull, and you're trying to clear trees from your whatever's left of your house. So, but I think what got me the most, my friends, was pulling down. It was a church group, or it was some kind of humanitarian outreach, and they were giving away toys and children's items and books. And there was a sign saying, if your children, take care of the kids, because children don't understand what's going on. They've lost their favorite bear, all their Hot Wheels, their Legos. They don't have anything. And this place was giving away Legos and race car sets and gifts and donations. And I thought that was so cool. Something I had not thought about. Think about the children. Think about what their lives are like. They're not in school. They're probably, some of them weren't even there. They were staying. I don't know the death toll in Joplin. It was pretty high. I don't know those numbers. A lot of injuries. The hospital was full. The hospital was on limited power. They were running on generators, so they had to, airlift and take people, back to bigger cities around Missouri, St. Louis, Springfield, et cetera, et cetera. But just the sheer devastation of this thing. We ended up doing a good bit of work, but the funny thing about tornadoes, especially in the path, is there's not much restoration. It's just demolition. It's just prepping for reconstruction or whatever. So we had some stuff on the outskirts. We had a civic center that took on it wasn't a lot of rain, but a lot of fallen debris inside and just damages and stuff. So we did some general cleanup. It had rained a few times, but nothing to really write home about. So these buildings that had no roofs, they were wet, but most of them were going to be scraped off and redone because the force was so much. Structurally, some of these these buildings on their foundations had twisted. They were going to be removed. We did some city homes. We did some houses that were like Section 8, a lot of roof water penetrations, windows cracked and stuff. We had to board up. So we messed around there. We were there about 4 or 5 days. We ended up not needing as many people, and I ended up, releasing some non-essentials and sending people back as we just, got this thing ready. We were just there trying to find out how we could help. This wasn't a regular storm for us. This was just like, we have skills, we have resources. Who needs what? We were donating stuff to people. We were doing free work for some people, for some relationships or just humanitarian stuff. So it's really cool. What I want to bring home this season and what I want to share a lot of, because I'm going to have some guests that did these things with me, as well as they did their own, but they've got their own stories. But these are your brothers. I wasn't in the military. I wasn't fortunate enough to serve our country in the military. But I sense that some of this is related to the people you're doing it with are as important as what you're doing sometimes. It's the mission's the mission. You got a job to do. but you're with people. You get to know them. You get to know that you like them, or sometimes that you don't. You go through hard things. People are dealing with stuff back at home, and you're there with them. You might be the only person they have to talk to. Lots of late night conversations, but we love John and I. John was the senior manager, like I was, and we had the bigger credit cards, and we were, everybody had per diem, but we would get everybody together for a meal. We had someone go and get a bunch of barbecue stuff, and we just gather around out in the parking lot around one of our tractor trailers and pop up grills and serve everybody. It was really a big popular thing in our company that John and I, or whoever, other managers, would serve those below us. We would literally, if we had aprons, we put on aprons, but we would do the cooking and we would prepare the plates because they worked so hard to do what they needed to do. They needed to know they were being appreciated. And this is where I learned that servants, servant leaders means you've got to be able to serve, to lead. So we did that a lot, and Hogan was a big part of that. Hogan was he was military, and he always knew what these guys needed. John Hogan traveled. He drove most places he went, and he would be in his company truck, and the back of his truck looked like a electronics store. So John traveled with Xbox, PlayStations, his own flat screen TV in case the place that he was staying didn't have it. But he would have, Madden football tournaments with the guys when they were off work, or a slow day, or a standby day, or something. I've got plenty more stories where we did this together with John. New York City, his room, you could hear on the floor that we were staying at in our hotel. We had a whole hotel to ourselves. You could hear them all screaming, and they were playing Madden, or they were playing whatever fighting game or racing game, and they were really animated. But those are the times that people made the connections and they remember each other. So I'm sitting, in Toronto at the big flood, and a couple people, we start talking about war stories. It's like we're talking about military war stories. Remember this? Oh yeah, Hurricane Michael. We were staying 2 hours away. I mean, Hurricane Katrina. My first job was up in Mississippi, and I was driving 3 hours each way to go handle this mall. And it meant that, here's the story. If I leave right now, it's 8:00 at night. If we leave right now, I'll get back in time to do my paperwork, and I might get 3 hours of sleep. If I don't shower, I get 3.5. So maybe I wouldn't shower because I had to be up the next morning at 3 to start heading back there. It was crazy. There were no hotels there, by the way, and we didn't have a camper or whatever. So, but these stories are what made what we did worth it. The opportunities we made. We made money, yes, but we were building skills. We were building a reputation. We were building talents that I was told when I first started in this industry by my first employer, Pete Bell, give me 8 years and you'll be able to do anything in this business you want to do. Give me full 8 good hard years and work through the ranks and work through and learn what you've got to learn. The funny story is I gave him 7 and he said I still owe him 1. So somewhere along the way, I've got to go back and do 1 more year with Cotton, but we laugh about it. But the stories, the companionship. So we were in Joplin. We're all sharing this tragedy together, and I could see it on everyone's face. Everyone's face was like, some of them were new. Some of them had been doing this a while, and they were just like, this is bad. This is like devastating. And we forget, even for a moment, we're there to do a job, but we forget these are people's lives. And whether that's, anything, any area-wide disaster, we're there to be contractors, and we can kind of like fall into work mode, and this is what it's about. These folks their lives are changed possibly forever. Some people might not have insurance. I don't know. So Joplin was really, really powerful time. We had a good team there. I wouldn't say we did a lot of work. I mean, that whole event, we probably did $400,000 or $500,000 worth of work, and we're used to doing millions and tens of millions and most things. But there was just nothing really to save, and lots of other contractors were there. Belfour was, of course, there. BMS Cat, my buddies over there, BMS Cat, were working on the college, and that was a pretty good size loss. But we were fine with it. We were there to help, and we were ready to. Honestly, I was ready to go home. I wanted to go back and hug my family after seeing this event and just be thankful. be thankful but empathetic that these people went through something, and I was ready to go back if I needed to. If we had something else that came up, my name was in the hat that I was going to fly back out there and handle it. It was moving for my son Cody for his first time. He kind of like, is this what it's always like? And I said, it's sad. It's not. There's always some degree of it. But if you're listening to this or watching this and you do disasters, to some degree, it doesn't have to be massive. It doesn't have to be a tornado. Someone having a fire in their home is the biggest event they might have ever been through. And they don't know what to do. It seems like the end of the world. Your house is burning or it's burnt. Everything you have and know and love, except for what you got out, is in there. Some of it can be saved. You guys and gals watching and listening to this are experts at recovery and restoration, but they don't know that yet. Their mind, they're emotional, their triggered fear is saying everything is lost. And I just hope that everyone, you know that the opportunity you have to help people in a traumatic state, but also the obligation you have to clearly articulate that you are, don't just say I'm an expert at this. We do this a lot, and this is awful, and it's going to be tough. But we have done this enough that we know what the other side's going to look at. We're going to be realistic with you. It's not going to be saving everything. There might be some things that are destroyed to some degree, but we can recover them and make them safe with no, carcinogens on them, no char and ash, and no odor. But they won't ever be the same. There might be pictures, but you'll still have pictures. You'll still have your heirlooms. You'll still have your wedding dress. It won't be the same because we had a fire. But you have an obligation and an opportunity to really give someone the relief knowing that as bad as this is, at least we call someone that knows what they're doing. There's an expert at this. It's like a doctor or EMT. I'm hurt, but this person knows how to handle hurt things. You know how to handle recover building. Floods. We're going to save your building. We're going to do what we can. I hope we can save this flooring. I hope the contents. But it's all replaceable. You're there as empathetic. At least no one was hurt. Our job now is to drive this the right way, to clean it if it's category 3 so that the after effects don't make you sick or impact you further. What we call the disaster after the disaster. Disaster after the disaster is when we don't do our job and we cause another disaster, which might be someone's harm or illness or loss of property, not doing the drying job, deteriorating their building materials, causing a mold job, having their cabinets buckle because we didn't have the gall to say these need to be removed. That's the right thing to do. We're being the disaster after disaster. So you have the opportunity. You see people at their worst, even if it's a small job for us. We've seen this 100 times, sometimes 1,000. They haven't. We have to train and retrain our mind. And our techs, your frontline team, they need to have the key characteristics. I talk about key characteristics. They need to know that you've been given an incredible power to really connect with people, and that's worth more than money. If you can help people when they really need it, there's no amount of money that can replace that feeling. So what I'm getting at is, commercial or not, Joplin was the worst thing I'd seen just from the devastation. I think about it often, and I think about the people that were out there. I think about John Hogan and things like that. So I've got I've got a list of projects. I want to tell you, I'm not really scripting this. Some people say you're supposed to script out your podcast. I don't work well with reading from a list. I'm looking at my notes, some highlights, some bullet points to make sure I cover things. But I'm going to relive these things through story with you. And I would love, comments. I would love feedback, even after. I can, if you want to have a call and talk more specifically about something. If you tell me something I said that was wrong, it could be done a better way. I need to learn that. But we're going to be talking about some big jobs, little jobs, international, and on and on and on. But I wanted to start with Joplin today because I'm going to ask often, what's the worst job you ever saw? That's such a loaded question. I saw some bad ones, some stinky ones. We've done some food plant stuff. We've done fertilizer plants in Hawaii. crazy stuff. But I would say from an emotional place, that was probably the one that I would say I don't ever want to see again. I don't want to see it happen again to anybody. And I've been to some other tornadoes, and they're all pretty bad. The Kentucky ones, Alabama, lots of tornadoes. Tornadoes are bad. They don't care. They're devastating, and oftentimes people don't have a whole lot of a building's just not going to last. You can't prep for that. I want to take a break. My team would be angry with me if I didn't. These podcasts are free, but I like to pay the rent. I have a company here, and we have to we do good stuff, really good stuff, and I would like to promote that. So we have an event coming up in June 18th of this year, 2024. If you're listening to this in 2025, this is already gone, but we are doing this annually. We did it last year. We have a business retreat in Montana every year in June, and this is in Whitefish. We've been using the Firebrand Lodge. It's a very rustic lodge hotel that feels like just like Montana. Big fire, big bar and restaurant downstairs, but rooftop that you can overlook the mountains at Glacier. It's right at Glacier and the Whitefish Lake and stuff like that. So we're doing a 3-day retreat there. It's a business retreat. So there's the right off. The theme is this year, delegation. We're teaching people extreme delegation techniques and environments. And this comes from our product ROS, which I'm going to talk about in just a second, that when you're trying to build a business and you're trying to elevate, you have to delegate. But who are the people to delegate to, and how would I do that? And how do I make them want to do it? How do I hold them accountable for that? That's what we're going to be learning. But we're in Montana. We're leaving a lot of space to go play, to explore. We're covering the hotel and the food. So we've got good food. We're covering the lodge. You just need to fly there and whatever rental, or don't get a car. If you want to go see the national park, that's on you. I'm going to be doing some excursions there. We might rent a boat. It's a great time. We had a great time last year. Some of the same people are coming back again. So I'm going to drop that link down there. If that's something you're interested in, we'd love to have you there. There's options for a +1. If you're bringing a spouse and they're staying in the same hotel room, there's just an add-on for the food. But if you're bringing a business partner and they're going to be attending the retreat and the training and the sessions with you, we're going to need to buy another seat for that, okay? So check that link down below. Contact us if you have more questions. It's June 18th, 19th, and 20th in Whitefish, Montana. Beautiful place of the year. Summer times are beautiful there. And then the other thing is, if you are a business in restoration and you would like your business to run better and more profitable and just the right people, right seats, we coach a program called ROS, Restoration Operating System. Imagine that you buy a franchise, and we work with franchise companies all day. We have clients that are franchises. You buy it thinking that you're being given a playbook on how to structure a company. I'm talking about the data, the people, the meetings, the decisions you have to make, and organizational structure, who does what, who are my next hires, what do I need to do when this happens. We're going to do all of that. We're going to set you up to where you run what we call WRT to CEO. You're going to be the CEO of your company, but you need to become the leader that's in the cockpit of your airplane so that you can see where you're going and lead this team to a better place so you can serve more clients the way you need to. That's what you got into this for. And then you need to have freedom. You need to have time to work on the big important things in your company, not doing tasks, not estimating, not getting on roofs, not going and getting phone calls all day and night. It's not going to happen anymore. ROS is changing businesses and changing lives, and we're happy to share that. So these links are going to be down below. I recommend you check out our website for the Montana Retreat or ROS. We're actually, as of the recording of this, if you want to go to Montana and join ROS, we are giving a huge value of some of the cost of ROS program is going to be taken off to give you a bundle package. That's it. I wanted to share with you this year. I think next week or next 2 weeks from now, next episode, I want to talk about Hurricane Michael. Michael was a unique, and that was in Panama City Beach, Panama City, Florida. But throughout, we're going to be talking about hurricanes all season, Fukushima, my time going to Baghdad for a big mold job, some big mold jobs I did. I did a $87 million mold job here in the U.S. on a military base. We could talk about the specifics of that and having 340-ish containments, logistics. We got stories about people, funny ones, sad ones, some of them shocking. It's going to be a really fun season. I'm really excited about where it goes. I see a vision, but I don't have all of the pieces worked out, but it's going to go as it goes. I'm going to have some guests, and we're going to have some fun. And then starting next week, I'm probably going to be giving you a link. I'm starting another company later this year or next year. It's called CATx. This is just a verbal preview. I don't even have a landing page. I have a waiting list. I'm going to be asking people, put your name on the waiting list, or reach out to me at klark@hay.com, KLARK@hay.com if you'd like some information. But I'm going to create a waiting list for CATx, and that's going to be my next consulting company. These are for companies that want to have commercial restoration divisions. You might be already a business, or you may want to start one that just does commercial. That's all I've done my whole career. I had a company that did a little bit of residential, but commercial is it. It's a different beast, and you can dominate your community. There's no reason that you, on your way to work and your team all day, you're passing commercial buildings, that they could be calling you for jobs. And this is not a sales program. I'm going to have a sales program part into it, but I'm talking about how do you respond to them, what certifications, what equipment, what licensing, what logistics, what do you need to know to handle those very profitable long-term relationship types of jobs. That's it for Disaster Podcaster, our first episode in the books. I'm interested. Once you've subscribed and you hit that little bell, you don't have to like. I guess you can like the post. I'm sorry, I'm a fool about YouTube, but subscribe to it, but then also hit that little notification thing so that you do get pinged or alerted or notified. If you would like to talk about something specific, if you'd like to tell me I'm going too fast or whatever it is, I'm an open book. Reach out to me. All the links that you need are down below. We'll see you on the next one. I think we're going to talk about Hurricane Michael in Panama City Beach. So if you were there, I think you'll probably be a good, have some comments about that and share your story with it. That's it for me. Disaster Podcaster, episode 1, season 4 in the books. See you next time.